9 days. That was all that stood between Earth and a Carrington-class solar storm powerful enough to shut down every satellite in orbit, crippling GPS, blacking out communications, and beginning a chain reaction that could still haunt us years later. Most people have never heard of the moment we nearly lost the skies, but the truth behind how close we came and what really happens the hour satellites go dark is more alarming than anyone admits. So what would unfold if our planetary luck finally ran out? On July 23, 2012, the Sun unleashed a coronal mass ejection so powerful it tore through Earth's orbit at nearly 3,000 kilometers per second. Earth, by chance, had passed that exact spot just 9 days earlier. Instead, it was NASA's Stereo A probe, parked millions of kilometers downstream, that recorded the full force of the blast. Heliophysicists at NASA and the University of Colorado pored over the data and realized the storm's intensity rivaled the legendary Carrington event of 1859. This was not a single eruption, but a pair of coronal mass ejections separated by minutes, traveling through a corridor in space that had already been cleared by an earlier ejection. That preconditioning allowed the plasma cloud to reach maximum velocity, compressing magnetic fields and driving shock waves that would have hit Earth with almost no warning. The 9-day gap was all that kept the world's satellites, navigation systems, and power grids from a test they might not have survived. In September 1859, the world's first global telegraph network became a testbed for a force no one fully understood. As the solar storm raced across Earth, telegraph operators reported their lines sparking violently. Some machines caught fire, and several operators were shocked as currents surged through the wires. In Montreal and Boston, paper ignited at the contact points. Even after batteries were disconnected, messages kept flowing, powered by the storm itself. Across North America and Europe, the night sky glowed with auroras so bright that people in Havana and Jamaica could read outside at midnight. Red and green curtains of light stretched over the Caribbean, far beyond their usual reach. The storm's reach was awe-inspiring, but its damage was limited by the era's technology. There were no power grids to fail, no satellites to fry. The telegraph, the most advanced system of its time, became both a witness and a victim to a solar event whose true scale would only be understood in the age of electricity. Charged particles slam into Earth's orbital highways, and the first casualties are the satellites. Within minutes, operators at ground control centers watch as telemetry streams from geostationary and medium Earth orbit satellites begin to flicker and then vanish. Single event upsets, random bit flips in satellite memory, trigger system resets, and put older spacecraft into endless reboot cycles. Deep charging from mega-electron-volt electrons builds up inside cable harnesses and circuit boards, setting off electrical discharges that knock out transponders and power regulators. The GPS constellation, with its 31 satellites, falters as key units drop offline or lose timing integrity. Navigation signals become unreliable, and precise timing vanishes from critical networks. On the International Space Station, astronauts shelter in shielded modules as radiation alarms sound. In the first hour, the invisible infrastructure that guides planes, tracks ships, and synchronizes global finance begins to unravel, all because the satellites overhead have gone dark. Cellular networks begin to unravel as the loss of GPS timing ripples through the system. In cities, dropped calls and garbled texts hint at deeper trouble. But in rural areas, the effect is immediate, and entire communities lose coverage as satellite backhaul fails. Island networks and remote towers, cut off from fiber and microwave links, go silent. At flight operations centers, controllers watch as aircraft position reports vanish from their screens. Without ADS-B data, planes over the ocean and polar routes must rely on ground-based radio and procedural navigation. Controllers widen separation standards and capacity drops. The chain reaction exposes how tightly daily life is bound to the invisible threads of space. Grid control rooms watch as the geomagnetic field swings drive powerful currents into the heart of the transmission network. High voltage lines, stretching hundreds of kilometers, act as antennas, funneling quasi-direct current into transformer cores. Within minutes, the first signs appear. Transformers slip into half-cycle saturation, drawing surges of reactive power and spawning electrical harmonics. Protection relays begin to trip, and capacitor banks disconnect as voltage sags ripple through the system. In March 1989, a less intense storm plunged Quebec into darkness in just 90 seconds. 6 million people were without power, and the grid collapsed before operators could react. A Carrington-class event would push hundreds of transformers worldwide toward overheating and permanent damage, setting off blackouts that spread across continents. As the first day ends, the grid backbone is buckling under the strain, with restoration measured not in hours, but in years. Replacing the backbone of modern infrastructure is a race against time and global supply limits. For satellites, the manufacturing and launch pipeline stretches thin, and building and deploying replacements for navigation and communications constellations could take 5 to 10 years. On the ground, extra high voltage transformers, each custom-built and weighing hundreds of tons, cannot be swapped quickly. Even in the best circumstances, a single new unit takes 18 to 24 months from order to installation, but with hundreds damaged at once, factories and supply chains would be overwhelmed. The economic toll of waiting for these giants to return is staggering, with United States losses alone projected to reach $2 trillion. Recovery from a solar superstorm would be measured not in weeks, but in years. Solar physicist Pete Riley's analysis puts the odds of a Carrington-class storm striking Earth at about 12% per decade. Yet while the risk is quantifiable, the gap in preparation is just as stark. Terrestrial LoRaWAN, the leading GPS backup, remains largely undeployed, and debates over grid hardening stall on cost. Insurers quietly model trillion-dollar losses, but policymakers still argue over who pays for resilience. The question isn't whether the threat is real, but whether we're willing to invest before the next storm arrives. NASA puts the odds of a catastrophic solar storm this decade at 12%. Our digital world hangs on borrowed time. The next warning may come too late to prepare. Stay alert.